Okay. Before I go into tonight's presentation, any questions and feedback? We did a lot of stuff last week, 2 weeks ago, on the whole life and relationship between, not whole life, but the relationship between John Gotti and his son, to talk about the father archetypal world, the father-son. And they said it's just as relevant for father-daughters as it is for father-son here. So any reflection before I begin and I dig into material? Joe, did you have a chance to listen to it? You get much of it? Okay, good, good. Okay. I think one of the first things to say is that when you're looking at patterns, we need to know something about the field from whence it originates. And I remember many years ago, I was giving lectures, the first time I lectured about patterns, and I'm going back almost 20-something years ago. Ervin Laszlo, many of you now know that name, the guy who said field precedes form. He was on a panel with me that day, and I talked about it. And he said, you know, Mike, it's really interesting. It's exciting work you're doing. I love the stuff on pattern and fields. He said, but you're missing a point when it comes to patterns. And I respect him. I said, well, what is it? He said, you're looking at the pattern as being independent and being autonomous. He said, it's not. And as a wonderful teacher, he said, you need to understand the pattern represents how a field tells its story, how it shows itself. The pattern is an informational constant. Okay, however way you want to say it. In other words, he's saying the pattern that we see, the pattern of the crystal, for instance, or the pattern of the father-son, mother-daughter, the father-daughters, the pattern is not the central issue. The pattern is what we see as the information begins to coalesce around a certain attractive point. Hope that's clear. Anyway, that was a wonderful breakthrough for me when he said that, because I was thinking, okay, look, it's the pattern. It's a pattern of X and Y, the Nautilus shell, or the pattern of organization, disorganization. He said, that's not the issue. Remember, anytime and every time you begin to look at a pattern, you're seeing beyond the veil of manifest reality. And I'll give you a good image. Something that's been the symbol for Assisi pretty much since our start is the Nautilus shell. And this is the real Nautilus shell. Isn't it incredible? Mm. It's absolutely perfect symmetry. And when they tried doing computer simulations of this, what they found is you could simulate this if you knew the code. You cracked the code. And the code is what's called the Fibonacci code. Okay. The Fibonacci code, you know how it works? It's every number added to the preceding number. 1, 1, 2, 2, 1, 3, 3, 2, 5, 5, 3, 8, until infinity. When they said this is built upon the Fibonacci code. So when we're looking at this pattern is a representation in matter of a universal design. I think that's probably the best way of saying it. The pattern is a manifestation of a universal design, having found a form and shape in matter in real time that captures the dynamic of that field. Okay? So whatever the pattern, accents, I wrote about in Field, Form, and Fate, about the accents of Southern Italy. Now, Joe, your family's Southern, right? You're Calabrese. Calabrese or Abruzzese?
No, Sicilian and from Bari.
Okay. Well, the way people speak, you hear the tradition, you hear the history of the people in the language, in the words, in the way people behave, in the way daughters are with their fathers, the way daughters are with their mothers, and sons with the father, son with the mothers. And what you're learning in this program is, number one, what is the feel behind that pattern? So again, when we see this story here of the Fibonacci code, we're looking at this shell, and if someone had a dream, say, of this shell, say this image, right? We took a photo of it, and they had a strange dream of that shell we saw the other night. Now, always we want to know what the dreamer thinks and feels. That's a given. You all know that by now. But what would you say the central issue would be? of that dream. Now, again, people can say, well, there's no one issue. Of course, there's a central issue. There are two parts. Anything with a hard shell is part of what they call the ectoskeletal design. Remember what that means by now? Ectoskeletal design means the protective membrane is on the outside. And as evolution has, I guess, has proceeded and gone forward, the outer design for crustaceans, for turtles, for hippopotamus and all that stuff, it's changed in humans and in the monkeys and fish and whatever, where there's no outer protective shell, like a wall around it. So whenever you see the ectoskeletal design, the first thing you think about is you're talking about a very primitive defense system. That's number one. This is huge, those of you that are working with patients. Number two, the issue is you're looking at something that has an unimaginable sense of self-organization and symmetry. That's innate to that system. So you'll be wondering the two things about the client from the image. So the one major one is ectoskeletal, a very primitive defense mechanism. You hurt me, I don't like you, I've got to kill you off and run away. It's kind of primitive, right? Instead, you want to talk about what's bothering you, you want to deal with it or not? Okay? Another one, well, I'm afraid you're going to abandon me, I'm going to just withdraw. Or I want you, so I'm going to have like a borderline reaction to you. Okay? They're all very primitive. The other major thing is the degree of self-organization. So I'm using this as my preamble to get into the field of reading patterns. So remember, a pattern is a telling of a universal story. Every myth we read, every biblical story, every Hasidic tale is a telling of a piece of psychic and spiritual life. From the witches to the warlocks to the angels and the demons, it's all a part of psychic life and nature, okay? So that when you see the configuration, the witches and warlocks or mother and daughters, and in particular the shading of that relationship, in time you're going to be informed around the field from whence that originated. Cinderella and her sisters, okay? It's a field of what? It's a field of the envious sisters and the mother that plays into it. The story of Pinocchio. Now, it's interesting. I don't know if you know the original Pinocchio. Right? The little boy with the big nose, he lies, he gets bigger and bigger. Well, anyway, in the original story, when Pinocchio is dealing with Jiminy Cricket, which is in Italian, Grillo Parlante, which is the conscience. It represents his conscience. Before Disney got their hands on that story, you know what Pinocchio did with his conscience? And you know what happened? He killed it. He took a hammer and he killed his conscience. And then what we find out about, I forget the author's name. It begins with a C. He was in court for dealing with moral infractions. At the time, there was a problem with conscience in the life of the author, and he was getting himself into a lot of trouble, a lot of accusations against him. So the minute you see, now this is where I find this work, it's absolutely brilliant, okay? Now I'm giving you examples, but you think about your life, Jamie, your clients, and Ilse, your clients, and Josie, people you work with. Underneath the particular shading of a story that the individual has, there's another story, there's a sub-story, which is the dominant. So someone dreams of Pinocchio. Now, neither therapist nor client, or pattern analyst nor client, knows the root of the story. And of course, you ask, what do you think? Well, it's a story about a little boy who lies. It's a story about a man who wanted a son so much, he brought him to life, okay? The dominant of the Pinocchio story is not about either of those. It's about conscience. What does one do with their conscience? Now, let's press the pause button, okay? You say, well, what about the fact he's a piece of wood and he comes to life? Isn't that a big, powerful story? Well, yeah, it is, of course. What about the father's love for the son? What about the fact that he lived in the belly of the whale? He was swallowed by the whale. These are all major pieces. But when you get to the heart of it, a major, major, major core of that story is conscience. This is where Dr. Kaufman was at his best. There was nobody came close to him with this work. About being able to identify under the story, the dominant archetypal story being told. And he would say, yeah, the Pinocchio story is really about a crisis of conscience. So your client, what they would be working over is a crisis of conscience. Well, what do the therapist doesn't know? What do the patient doesn't know? Well, that's a great question. It doesn't obliterate the facts. This is where our work is difficult. It means you've got to get under the story. I mean, really, you know, the great piece that Katrina, one of our graduates and faculty members, did. She did a stunningly profound telling of the Little Red Riding Hood story. It turned the story upside down. I said, where in God's name did you get it? That what she found was, she did her research, right? She said that in ancient times, I think she tracked it back to a French story originally, the French origins of the story, that the wolf was really part of the initiation of the young girls into the world of the feminine, right? It's phenomenal. It's phenomenal. So one of the ways to practice is to take a story. Take any myth and work it and read it and live with it and cook it and wear it when you go out to the gym, wear it when you go out dancing and all that stuff. Think about it when you take your shower and ask, okay, what's the story really about? We worked on the great myth a while ago, The Fisherman's Wife. It was a great, we worked on that story for probably a month, 2 months. It was a great one. And the story really was about the male's inability to deal with the feminine, and the feminine that wouldn't stop asking. The inflated feminine in the story, representing the woman, the wife, also the anima of the man, and where the wisdom really resided. So you begin to try to get the piece. Now, what we're doing with this John Gotti story is we're looking at it through the lens of an archetypal pattern analyst. Now, what does that mean? Okay. It means that we're trying to discern what is the real story here. And in the module we're in, we're looking at fathers and sons and fathers and daughters. Now, remember, when you're using the term fathers, we're not just talking about the personal father. Of course, the personal father plays a huge role in the life of every child. We're looking at the child's relationship to the outer world. Because remember, the father, and I've given this term to it now, the father archetypal world represents the social conscious world, or the world of social consciousness, where you engage with the outer world, you engage with jobs and careers and all that goes with stepping out of the parental house and wanting to be part of the larger world. Now, this is a great story to work with. There were so many poignant pieces in the interviews, and hopefully by now you've all seen the interviews, or at least part of them, if not all of them. When the interviewer asks John Gotti Jr., what did your father really care about? Remember that piece? And he says, my father cared about one thing. My father cared about being the capo di capo, being the boss. That was his whole issue. He didn't, and the interviewer very gingerly said, but didn't he care about the kids? And he said, not really. He didn't care about the kids. At that moment, as a pattern analyst, you're looking at a huge, huge life issue. Right there, again, if you press the pause button, we're looking just at that scene, so to speak, right? Read the scene holographically. Let's practice right now. When the boy says nothing mattered but being the Don, having the respect of the people, kiss my ring, and all that goes with that world, looking like $1 million, $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 suits and all that, you don't mess with the Don. You mess with me, you're dead. You know that, and that's how it works. So as we look at that image and that part of the story right there, what do we know about the story of the father and the children? What about the field that we're in? What are some of the component parts of the field? Because remember, when we're reading fields, you're going to be trying to understand what are some of the features of this field if you're in it. Okay? Because a little kind of mild example, when I was in Bogota in July, last July, it's almost a year already, I can't believe it. They had a party the last night. They had about a 10-piece Latin band. Oh my God, you've never heard music like this in your life, and you've never seen dancing like this in your life. Oh my God. Salsa dancing and the cha-cha with people that really know the moves and all that. It's so beautiful. And you knew you entered a world where people knew this. To be able to move like that, there needs to be a relationship to something very elementary in the psyche. That they still know that, as well as all the scholarship, all the brilliance, all the stuff that people know. They also had that connection that their bodies were so unbelievably fluid and beautiful to move like that. And you entered something. And what I'm asking here is to be able to really develop the ability to read holographically. Remember what that means by now, that you have an image and you're saying, what's in that story? What are some of the component parts of that story? And I'm sure we can give many examples of, how to begin to learn this. But let's take this one right now. And when you're dealing with archetypal patterns, we're gonna add a word here: morality. And remember, Jung said that any and every meaningful treatment, and I'll include any meaningful pattern analysis, or Josie, any powerful mentoring relationship, will, at some point or another, he said, involve two major issues: an experience of the numinous and an experience of the moral archetypal world. I'll say it again. Jung said that any meaningful treatment, and again, I'm going to expand that to say coaching, pattern analysis, anything that involves working with psyche, will by necessity involve two central issues. One is it has to include an experience of the numinous. Everyone know that word by now, the numinous? Okay. And the other is the experience of morality. Because many people live with moral dilemmas. It's what we do with it. And a related piece to this, I have another thing I recommend you watch as part of your learning with this, as we stay in the world of the fathers. On YouTube, there's a 6-part series on Ingmar Bergman, the Swedish film director. It's very, very powerful. I'm not going to say why, but I'd like you to watch it, and maybe next time we're going to include that in our discussion. I may say a few things about it tonight, though. Hopefully I don't let the cat out of the bag and everybody think about it. But it's profoundly moving on both sides of the spectrum, profoundly moving. So again, you learn to listen and watch. But what I'm asking you to do is, as you look at something, tell me what else is in that story. Okay? This is, they call it the bullet, those blenders. You ever see those things? The blenders, they cut everything out. Well, this is the thing one of the things you put all the liquids in. So if you are looking at this piece right here, tell me what else might be, what's highly likely to be in that story. Okay, Max, start. You know what a bullet is?
Yeah, it's a high-speed blender for, you can make certain things that you can't make with a regular blender, right? Like certain
smoothies,
juices, vegetable. People use them to make vegetable drinks.
Yeah.
So they are, it's about an artificial and highly processed way of taking in organic vegetable matter.
Hold on. Okay, pause right there. Say that last piece again. Go ahead.
Go ahead. What?
Okay, say
you
that.
Want me to keep going? Again? Well, what the bullet does is it processes vegetable matter in such a way that I don't actually know how good it is for you. I'm kind of curious about that, but you can take in a lot of vegetable matter at
Okay,
once.
okay. Pause right there. That's a pause more. So you're saying the blend, say we get the whole thing here, the blend and everything, right? And that's your drink. Is this blender is it really the blend of the blades and all that? Is it really so that you can consume the thing you blend up? Is that the dominant of it? Yeah, let's say where we're going.
Well, that's a good
Hold
question.
on.
I guess I would say,
Well, let's go slowly.
okay.
We're trying to find out what the issue might be, and some of the issues in this with the bullet. You know, Ilsa, do you have that in Colombia, the bullets? It's a type of very high speed blender, and the way the blades are done, it's so interesting. I don't know. So engineers are so incredible. The blades, not even as sharp as a regular blender. Frullatore, Italian say blender in Spanish. Frullatore. Okay? And it cuts things up so quickly, and it makes like into a juice, carrot juice, vegetable juice, whatever. It also is pretty good for making margaritas, I gotta tell you. Not that I know, but if one wanted to make a margarita, it's a good way to do it. Okay. Is the goal, Max? No, Max is saying the goal is so you can really take in the food, the liquids, and all that. Is that the dominant of this thing? This is a great example, and it's a great piece what you hit, because that's not the dominant.
Well, what would you say the dominant is?
I ain't gonna answer right now.
Yeah, because right. I mean, it has, you know, to me, I don't know a lot about them, but I think they have very limited use, and so I guess the dominant would be that it grinds up matter.
Thank you.
Right.
Totally different what you just said. You see the difference?
Yeah.
Can everybody catch the difference, how subtle it is? So if you dream it and say, well, it's for the purpose of consuming the vegetables and all that, that's a byproduct.
Right.
The dominant of it would be what then? Fine tuning. Jennifer, the dominant would be what of this thing? Max just began saying, so fine tune his comment.
Well, I keep thinking of liquidification. It turns solids into liquids. It turns something solid into liquid matter. It highly processes and it changes its.
Well, you could put liquids in and you can put liquids in. You can mix, like do a mixed drink, or you make a margarita without ice, maybe, and you can still just mix everything together. So, but what's the major thing? See, the dominant has to do with the major thing that it's about. We could say a million things. Huh?
Something that's high speed and cuts at a high speed or blend. I don't know. I've never worked on. I don't know what one's like. I'm not exactly sure all that it does, but it sounds like high speed.
High speed something. Jamie?
High speed in a small space.
Could it be as simple as mixing?
No, it doesn't just mix. Bread machines mix and those things mix. Quasar, they mix. Josie?
Does it have anything to do with unification and integration?
I don't know if I'd call it integration.
So when you're
blending, yeah, like it could be, it's blending, but what it does the blending, number one, the mixing together, number two, the ability to take in the liquids, Max, okay, number three, those are all byproducts of the fact it does something that allows those things to happen. And we're trying to understand what is the dominant here as we're working our way into the John Gotti thing. Georgiana?
It's energy, isn't it?
Huh?
Energy? Is it energy? Requires energy. Dominant power? Energy?
Not the dominant. The energy is required to do what it does.
Spin?
So, I mean, we can all spin.
It breaks something down. It breaks stuff to the smallest piece that it can be.
It has the capacity to break things down and to, what's the word? Macerate. Macerate, they say in English? Macerate? Yeah.
Macerate.
Macerate, to macerate. Macerare. That it's a machine that has the capacity to break things down very quickly and really efficiently. Now, all the things you guys said, it's right, but many of the comments are byproducts. Yes, a byproduct is by being able to break that stuff down, we can consume it, Max. It spins, it mixes, it integrates, it can all that. I mean, when you make a margarita, which, you make a nice margarita, it mixes, it blends the flavors together. So, you don't have to use the shaker, the jig or whatever. You put it there and it all blends together. You make some ice, you blend it up and all that. It's a high speed way to break things down or to blend things. Now, what do you do with that? I'm not sure where I would go, but I would have to start at that point to understand the image. And you see, everything else are byproducts. Yeah, Max.
Well, one of the things that occurs to me is that, you could eat a carrot and you would be macerating, right? You would be breaking it down.
Exactly.
This is a method of processing something. I guess artificially is the
artificial.
Word
It's doing what, Maggie, just to bring in very quickly, what we're doing is we're winding into the Gotti story tonight, and I'm working on the idea of how patterns are telling a very powerful story. And I use the image right here of, bullets, the blender things.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what would the dominant be of a bullet? And we're getting it's to mix things, to kind of fold things together, many things that people are saying, or to give us something to drink. I'm saying those are not it. And we just hit it, which is a major pieces. It has a capacity to break things down very quickly or to mix with incredible accuracy and efficiency. And right, Max, in many ways, it's built on what model? On the stomach and the body.
It's not important to say that it's a container that allows transformation.
Very good.
Because its main shape, it's a container that allows that many energies are contained there that allows the transformation of matter.
Beautiful.
In different phases.
Within a container, within a contained space. Beautiful.
Within a contained space.
Beautiful. So with that translation, what would you say the dreamer is going through? If your client had this, again, whatever kind of client you got, religious counseling, shamanic healing, mentoring, whatever. Okay, so what would you say, Catalina, from what you just said?
From the blender? From the dominant of the blender?
Yeah. In other words, if Psyche gave that image, if the client is unconsciously attached to that image or that image is coming up to them, it's to tell them something, to tell us as the clinician or the pattern analyst something. What do you think it's trying to tell the pattern analyst?
Maybe that the person is referring to an image that addresses to a contained space in which it's happening lots of things that are that has a transformative potential energy. That are, I don't know if I.
Again, go back
if
to
a person
the central thing it does. It breaks it down.
Excuse me, I did.
Inefficiently. So
if it's.
You're right where you're going, but I think you need to stay with the fact that these blades have a way of breaking things down incredibly quickly. Yes, in our bellies, they may break down eventually, whether it's ice, you keep ice in your mouth long enough, the carrots, you chew them. Look, everything from cutting, from a knife to cut, to blenders, to anything that cuts is based on the model of what? It's our teeth. The need to get things into a usable shape, size that we can then digest it. It's all part of that process. But this particular thing, the central thing this has as its process is an incredible ability to break things down very quickly and efficiently in seconds. Okay, Catalina?
It's an artificial element. So maybe it's too quick for some processes. I mean, maybe there are things that maybe you need that artifact in order to process some kind of things, but others maybe are not, it's not the best way to process it.
You just said, Max, you mentioned artificial too, humanly made. The fact it does it so quickly, that's going to be a clue. If you're working with the client and they have this image, what would you think of the fact that it does it so quickly? Jennifer?
Well, it does it really quickly, and that could be bad, but also looking at the bullet, it's like a single serving. It's an amount that's digestible. It's not a huge amount that's overwhelming. They're not going to drown in a sea of it. It's only a small amount of something highly processed that a person could probably consume in one serving.
Not too big, right? Yeah.
It's not so big, you know.
Okay, but let's go on and go slowly. I want to go very slowly, because if you say, because it does it so quickly, maybe it's saying the patient's doing it too quickly. Pause. Does this do it quickly for the purpose of doing it too quickly? No, it's a purpose of efficiency. For this particular machine, other things may do it slowly. The bread makers, or whatever, the Quasar thing, I watch them do the bread, they take their time and they mix it and they fold it in and all that kind of stuff. It's meant to go slowly. The dominant is, it's meant to go quickly. In knowing that, that's a clue, Carolina, that if this was your client having this story, most likely it's telling you there's a need for this person to do what, Maggie?
To break it down efficiently and quickly.
Very good. Now, whatever the dream is going through, you don't have a lot of time, most likely, to break this thing down. It's got to be done probably relatively quickly and efficiently.
Well, in addition to that, I was thinking about, like, what would you have to do to make a smoothie by hand? That would be awful.
Pretty rough,
like,
right?
You couldn't do it.
I don't think you can do it.
I mean, by the time you chopped up the ice that small, it will melt.
Right. And that's why this machine is designed to do these kind of things. So again, you see what we say, well, is it too fast? The machine doesn't do it because it's doing it for the purpose of doing it too quickly. It's appropriate for what that machine does. So anyway, this is all our preamble tonight, to be able to look at a story. So when we hear in the beginning of the Gotti story, we hear a very powerful piece, which is what the father cared most about was what? Being a powerful man. A powerful man in controlling people, controlling situations, and using tremendous force to exert his power. Okay. Now, with that alone, what do we know about the father-son relationship? So, Adrian, where would you go with that right now? Where would you go with that piece, just knowing that fact right there, that the father cared about power, he didn't care about the kids that much? What's in that field that you are now brought into and aware of?
Well, the father would be detached emotionally from, it's almost like the children have an absent father.
Good, okay. What else is in it? Let's walk it through. We're going to go in that house right now.
I guess the collective values, the view of how he's perceived outside of his family is what's driving him, the father.
Yeah.
To the point of being like so omnipresent, like maybe not present materially, physically for his family. He's somewhere else.
Yep.
All the time.
What else about father and children? What else is in the field? See what we're doing right now? We're walking in the field of this based on that singular image. That's reading things holographically. We're not making it up. I mean, some things we say, I'll say, you say whatever, may not fit the story. And then we may not be reading it holographically in an accurate way. But there are accurate things you can discern from this alone. So what else here? If you go into another room, what would you say about the kid's relationship with his father?
Yeah, the son. So from reading the Neumann on the father, would the son be the sort of the captive hero? Like he's not possessed by a God image, but he's really possessed by a father image. And in the interviews with Gotti Jr., it seems that he's almost trying to be this hero transformer who's redeeming himself.
Who are you saying, the son?
The son, yeah. The son is trying to redeem himself and break these patterns. He actually seems to really love his own children. He has a relationship with his children that's different than the relationship his father had with him. He's almost the opposite of his father in some way, but he admires him. So I would imagine that there was a lot of conflict in the son in wanting to be like the father, do what makes the father proud, but having this other piece of him that's much more connected to family.
Okay. You use the word, I think you use the word redemption, right? Redemptive? Mm-hmm. Redemptive archetypally means what? Remember what it means from von Franz? He used a huge word here. Redemption means the breaking of a spell.
Yeah, the cycle.
In fairy tales, when somebody's turned into a pig or a frog or a bird or whatever, they lost their human capabilities. And then when they come back, there's like a transformation happens. That's where redemption comes in. Now, it's interesting. When I gave a lecture about the whole theme of archetypal redemption to the Russia group, I said something that had never really dawned on me before, and I think it was important. I said, when one is possessed, they become the bird or the frog or whatever in the fairy tales, they lose their human capabilities, the human attributes. Meaning, think about all of us. Think of everybody. Think of your life. I'm sure we've all had moments where we've been possessed by something. It could be many different things, from the rage where you just want to kill a person and get a gun and beat him in the head with a bat, or you're having a romantic night or a day, whatever, and you know that zone you start going into. You go into that zone and you could just feel, you can see that world opening up, and you're going into it. The chemistry, everything begins to change. The feel of resentment and bitterness, and when you're there, you're bitter and resentful. Okay, so the point is, at those moments, all your human capabilities are temporarily eclipsed, and you do become an animal, i.e. you become instinctive. You're driven by the instinctive piece. So here, you say John Gotti Jr. is seeking redemption. Here's the question in the story. Is the son seeking redemption, or is the son possessed? Let me use more specific language. Father-son archetypal field. Is the son in relationship to the archetypal field of the fathers in a way that's redemptive and healing and forward-moving? Is the son in relationship to the archetype of the father world in a way that's regressive and it's possessed, and which will eclipse his ability for transformation? Now, what made you say it was redemption? His relationship with his own kids? Adrian?
Yeah, well, it seemed he was trying to break the cycle of being a life criminal, like a, and there's a whole tradition around that it would be considered, I think, it'd be very taboo for him in this mafia. There's this whole system that's been in place for so long. For him to resist that in any way, shape, or form, I think is him trying to sort of rise above it. Mm-hmm. And I guess I viewed it as being redemptive in that he wasn't just going to accept that as he's trying not to accept that as his destiny. He's trying to see something different for himself. And it's not that he doesn't seem to be against the mafia, against the father. It just seems that he is looking for something different for himself, possibly his own soul. That's just the impression that I get from watching him in the interviews, that he's not feeling that he needs to follow in this particular, it's almost like his father, I feel, is more possessed by the archetype than the son is.
Okay. Anybody take the other side? Anybody feel or have your evaluation that the son was possessed by the father world in a way regressive?
I kind of took more of that side with the story.
Yeah, me too. I did too. He loved the club. He wanted to be so much a part of that. It was his be all and his end all, and he was a criminal for the first half of his life. He went to jail.
Who, the son, you say?
Yeah, the son. He was possessed by the life that the father was presenting.
Good. And Max, what do you say? What's your data?
Well, I think on an archetypal level, I guess, I felt like it's the story of the son is starving for relation to the father, because the father really is absent, because the father is possessed by the sliver of the archetype, by his identification with a certain part of the archetype. Yeah. And then I think the rest of it, it's been a little while since I watched it, but I think it's a little bit of it, it's maybe my own paranoia. Like, I didn't believe the son was redemptive. It just didn't come across that way to me, and I can't actually describe why right now, but I was like, no, he's still caught in this.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Michael,
yeah.
I have a question, Michael. We're supposed to strictly look at
let me fix the sound here. Hold on.
What are the characteristics or the dominance as far as the world of the father? In this case, probably the father in a degenerative aspect. But we're not considering where is this creativity coming from. Again, I bring up he wanted to write a children's book. Victoria Gotti is extremely creative. The mother was an artist. Their mother was an artist, and some of the most treasured things that Victoria Gotti writes about is a painting by her mother. So that there is another side to his world. Yes, the son was overpowered by the field of his father wanting to be in absolute control, good or bad. Absolute control is never completely generative, but there was another aspect.
Where do you come out? Do you come out he was possessed and castrated by the field, or that he had a
Well, I feel like he's trying to break away because of this other aspect of the generative.
Okay, your voice is breaking up. I don't know, with your machine, your voice is breaking up there a lot. I don't know what it is.
It's whether or not the world and his own history. It's like, you expect a fox not to kill chickens. He was born into a world that is very different than most people understand, and he is aware evidently of another world that he's trying to break away from. But you mentioned possession. He does have a light of this creative aspect from the mother.
Okay, well, let me raise a piece, and I know also you got a question here, or a comment in a minute. What are we evaluating when we look at the individual's relation to the father? This is not about John Gotti and John Gotti Jr., okay? That's an example. What are we assessing? This is the major piece. When you're dealing with your client or our own life in relationship to the world of the fathers, what are we looking at? Let's just go really slowly right now. What's the issue?
Isn't it the ego capacity? The ego's capacity to determine reality compared to the internal experience?
Beautiful. It's watching the ego and assessing the ego's relationship as it begins to navigate in the outer world. Excellent. Beautiful. That's number one. Number two, what are our major tools as we begin the assessment process?
That their stories, how congruent they would be with reality? Would that,
no,
if you're right, you're assessing? No.
It's a little vague. What are we really assessing? When the ego goes into the world of the father, into the world of industry, into the world of negotiation, all of that stuff, man or woman, what are we assessing? You're right in the beginning. It's looking at the ego. So right away we know once the issue of the father comes up, we're dealing with the archetypal world of the ego's journey away from the world of interiority. Dancing in the basement or the backyard, or playing basketball alone in the backyard, or whatever, to the gun trying out and being on a team and being in a dance company or whatever, okay? Or trying out. There are two major things that happen here. And that's why it's a very good example. We want to see, what does the ego do when it begins to confront that world? Go two ways now. Number one, it needs to learn the traditions of that world. The ego needs to be in an apprenticeship to the world of the fathers. The caveat here with this story is, what world of the fathers are you aligned to? Now hold that thought right there, okay? You know what I'm saying? So number one, we want to see, does the ego have the capacity to learn the traditions of the world of the father, the world of the collective? Okay? Can they negotiate that, and can they not just be the maverick? I mean, I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to change it this way. Like, I really want to learn Latin dance. I really want to learn this stuff. Now, say I can do it my way. Well, you know, I don't want to do it my way. I want to learn how you guys do it. I mean, I've watched two colleagues from Colombia dance, and oh my God, it's magic. It's beauty. It's gorgeous. I want to learn that. I don't need to do my own steps. See, the inappropriate, to use that language, the inappropriate way to do this would be, I'm going to do it my way. Well, then you're really not learning salsa. You're not learning the cha-cha. You go into work with a master like Robert Langs or Urim. See, well, I will listen to you, but I'm going to do it my way right away. Oh my God, really? That protests too much. Are you really that fragile? Please. Are you that weak inside yourself that if you learn somebody else's stuff, you're afraid you're going to be eaten up and devoured? That's very sad. I'm going to put my cards on the table right now, okay? Because I'm trying to help you learn about assessment, okay? So somebody goes into the world of the fathers, and you're going to learn. You go to the dance studio, and they say, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do these certain moves, right? Well, I'm going to do mine. I'm going to do like Brooklyn. Brooklyn, they always use the thumbs. Well, then you're not learning this dance. Learn the story. Learn the dance the way it's done. Also, I'm sure when you do a role, whatever role you play when you're on a stage, you've got to learn that role. Of course you want to bring Ilsa into it. You're 30, 40 years or whatever being on the stage and dancing and singing. You're going to put your own tone to it. But you need to know what that role is. Is this the role of Madame Butterfly you're playing? Is this the role of, you know, whatever particular story? You need to know that role. But when one is so frightened, this is a major assessment tool right here. I'm doing it my way. Oh, you want me to be your student? You want me to learn what you want me to do it your way? I'm not going to play that. No. I'm no puppet. I have my own style. I've got my own. I work too hard to be me. I'm not going to be taken in by that. No. My first assessment is going to be, they must be very frightened. The ego, the so-called strong ego they have, it ain't strong at all if you have to talk that way. Because anybody who knows this stuff, you learn. If I take my lessons, if I say, Ilsa and Catalina teach me how to do this kind of dance, I would hope that I have enough confidence in both of you as teachers and my own psyche that I can learn your stuff, learn your moves. How'd you do that? What'd you do with the hand, the hip? You know, I want to learn it that way. If I'm so afraid of losing myself in the process, myself is not strong at all. That's your issue then to deal with somebody. So, Jennifer, right, number one, what we're looking at, okay? And again, Josie, talk to you right now because you're sort of the newest member in the class here. When we're in this world of the fathers, what we're dealing with is the ego's movement, transition from the world of interiority, the world of the mothers, where they're gathering all the strength, putting all the stuff in the backpack, so to speak, all the things they need to make it in the world. They're now in the outer world. We're looking at the strength of the ego or absence of the strength of the ego. So I could do it my way. That's pretty sad. if the need to do it your way preempts your learning, we got a really fragile ecosystem. That's your work then, okay? So the ego needs to learn the tradition of the world of the fathers are in. And the caveat I said a moment ago is, but you got to assess what world they want to learn. What world of the fathers are you in? Is it something you need to be in or not? Take the people that are in the cults, like what were the Jonestown, with the Jonestown massacre years ago, and the Davidian group in, what was it, in Texas somewhere? You know? I mean, you say, well, they were in the club, they were part of it. Okay, but make your assessment. And I want to add you another piece as we move on to this. A taboo for many people doing any kind of reading of a pattern is they're afraid to say anything, afraid to have a value. Get over it. I'll tell you right now, get over that. You really hurt people if you don't have a value. And the value is not just your value about the James Davidian thing. It's not your value if somebody has become a fanatical Christian, Jew, Muslim, whatever. It's you're reading it psychologically. You're reading it archetypally. If someone becomes a fanatic in a certain field, it's saying, again, it's a story of what? Fanaticism is an ego that is eclipsed by the world of the collective, of whatever the collective thing you're jumping into. And it's been said, and I've said it too, you really cannot work with anybody who's a fanatic. But the Bible said, but God said, Mary said, Muslim said, Muhammad said, men can't do that, women can't do that, women can't be priests. Oh my God, stop it, stop it. It's a fragile system. You see what I'm getting at? These are all, I bring the issue of assessment into many of these conversations because it's crucial. So yes, you're entering the world. We got the Jennifer piece, great, great. The next thing we want to look at is the sequencing that goes on in the world of the fathers. Are you able to learn the traditions and shut your mouth for a while? Go home and tell your husband, your wife, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, whomever, your dogs, and say, you know what? I'm learning how they make the shoes in this factory. And it's pretty interesting how to do it, but I think I have an idea of how to do it differently. That's one. Another one could say, those idiots, what the hell are they doing? That's so primitive. That's the way they did it 50 years ago. Come on, you idiots. You know? It's what you do with this, because here's what you got to assess. Does the individual have the capacity for individuation in that system or not? I'll say it differently. Does the individual have the capacity to have a well-deserved personal response to that system? Do they have to do it the way you do it all the time? Like, I would love to come out of my dance class with Ilsa and Catalina and Adriana, who's also a very beautiful dancer. And I would hope I could do it like you guys. And then eventually my thumbs may go up. Brooklyn may come out. But I would want to learn it. Okay, look, it's up. How'd you move your feet? 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, you know, whatever. And you learn it. And it's what you do with the capacity to make changes in that. What are you doing with your own innovative perceptions and ideas about things? If your creativity preempts your ability to learn and be disciplined in learning the skill, we got a problem. Now, of course, there are those handful of people in history that were so brilliant they could never be part of a collective. But you still got to analyze it carefully. Some people were too much to be part of the collective. And this would be interesting. Read up on historical figures. I mean, there were some of the great ones. What was their relationship to the archetypal world of the fathers? Again, the different language. How did the ego navigate the waters of conformity and creativity? Those are two great words to add to this. How did the hero navigate the waters of conformity and creativity? Now, here comes another piece of assessment. I told you the story, I think, last time we met. When I gave the most golden opportunity to a friend of mine, and he fell on his face. And I apologized to him when he fell on his face. Because I said, I forgot of what your real skills were. His greatest skills were he's an accompany. He can accompany, like a background singer kind of thing. He's the best backdrop singer you ever want to meet. The best team player you ever want to meet. He's not a solo player. That was my inability to read accurately or to treat him that way. So you got to ask yourself, is this person really hitting the ceiling by being a great team player? So I go out, I learn from Ilsa and Catalina and everybody how to do the dancing or whatever. And I do it your way all the time. And I begin teaching it your way. So I'm teaching your approach. Not everybody has that breakthrough ability. And as Yoram said to me years ago, he said he wanted me to get somebody involved in the CC community to teach. He said, Michael, he's a very good soldier. He knows how to teach this stuff. In terms of ingenuity and creativity outside of the box, so to speak, he doesn't have it. You have to know that, he said. But to put him in that box, in that square, he could do it beautifully better than most people. But don't expect ingenuity. Don't expect novelty coming out of this. Expect somebody who can really teach the salsa steps really well. That's it. So that's a lot of what you're assessing. So when we look at Gotti, Adrian, so would you say that when John Gotti was a young kid and growing up and the way he lived his life, what was the ego's relationship to that world? Well, I guess the first thing, what is the world he put his ego into? And then in terms of your assessment of it, number two, was he did he get absorbed into it, or was there an individualized relationship? Now, you seem to be saying it's more individualized. So let me hear from this perspective, comments.
Yeah, I mean, my understanding was that he did try to assimilate himself into that world, and he even liked certain aspects of it. You know, he was sort of like his dad in that he liked being the man, you know, around town. But there was something that was bothering him about it. And I'm thinking about what you were saying about choices you can make. I mean, he could have chosen to try to transform the system itself.
Good luck.
Although I think that'd be very hard.
Not possible, yeah.
But I think, you know, right? So he wasn't feeling that he was quite in sync with that lifestyle, that there was something in that lifestyle that was preventing him from being who he truly felt he was or wanted to be. Yeah. And that had, you know, in my view, that had to have been such a strong, that feeling had to have been very strong for him.
Which is the feeling? To be part of that, you mean?
The feeling that he had that there was something more that he wanted, that there was, that system wasn't giving him what his essence wanted, for lack of a better word, like what he really felt he wanted for his life.
Okay.
I think that feeling had to be so strong in him. It had to be strong for him to kind of go against the system, which is going against the father. I mean, that had to be very, very difficult. Okay. And I think if that hadn't been such a strong feeling inside of him, whatever the drive was, where he's thinking, you know, this may not be the life for me. You know, in my family, I like parts of it, I relate to it, but it's not quite what I want.
Okay.
I think that was so strong in him that that's what led him down the path of, you know, trying to disengage. I also, after what you were saying, was thinking, you know, is he kind of a coward? Like, was he afraid for his own life and for his family's life? Like, was there a fear in there that also was prompting him
to
rethink his role?
Well, we're going to pick up that 1 minute. Ilse, you had a comment before.
Yes, I believe I was thinking of a part that I see of him, which was how happy he was when he finally was accepted by the father, when he started as an adolescent being part of that world. Yeah. And that image really spoke to me about the beginning of that relationship, which is none. Only if he went to the power and the world of the father and to that place, he would try to be accepted by the father, which was actually the only thing this kid wanted. I believe, and as he spoke about his father, I only hear a little kid adoring a father and wanting with all his effort and whatever it took to be near that figure. You know, he adored the way he spoke about his father still is just of adoration, of absolute. He adored that father with all his life, but it's that child in him that kept talking. So I don't know if he really could get out of that, because it's like he's entrained in that need of a father that wasn't there.
Well, I want to pick up on both these things. I want to go back 1 second. If you could look at these two figures, John Gotti the father, John Gotti the son, Jr., and imagine, or not imagine, it's true, it's accurate, but it's energy moving. They're both energies. The energy of the son is the energy of the ego. The energy of the father is the energy of the archetypal world of the social conscious, having taken on these two personalities. And I'm saying this because I really hope that we can all develop a double vision with this work. So as you talk about the father and the son, you're talking about the ego relating to this archetypal construct, this archetypal domain. And so when we talk about whether benevolent, generative, castrating, regressive, we're talking about not only the individual, but the energy of that psychic structure, okay? Now, remember I asked you last time, I said, we're going to do an imaginary thing. We're going to take John Gotti and put him in a therapy session, because it's never going to happen. I know that. And we're not going to worry about timing of interpretation and ego and boundaries and defense mechanism. We're going to shoot through all that right now. I'm going to get a laser. What's the thing you'd have to say to him? Okay, now we did that last week, and we got to the archetypal roots of all this, which is Abraham and Isaac. Okay. Now, let's do the same question. You're all going to be the therapist for John Gotti Jr. And you only got a couple of sessions, maybe one session. And he says, I want you to tell me whatever. Jamie, go ahead. What's the major thing that you feel this guy needs to know about himself? John Gotti Jr. now. We're not worrying about how you say it. We're not worrying about time. We're not worrying about how he's going to take it. None of that.
How much he's still in the sway of his father's influence.
Come on stronger.
That he really hasn't made a life of his own.
Okay.
He's even had to go to his father in prison to inform him of what he was doing.
Okay,
and
good.
to get his response.
Okay. I'm going to ask you another more pointed question. What emotional reaction was missing in John Gotti, son, in John Gotti Jr.? What emotional reaction was missing that is blatantly clear? It's blatantly missing.
Anger.
Very good. Anger on what? Say it to him right now. Say it to the kid.
You're not angry at your father.
Yeah. At some level, he should hate his father.
Mm-hmm.
He should hate his father. Terrible language used, but okay, you know what I mean. His father slaughtered him. That's why I brought up the Abraham and Isaac backdrop to the story. Remember the story when John Gotti Jr., I think you're all pretty much on the call last week, when he said that he went out, they went out to beat somebody up, a couple of the guys, and they were getting beaten up really badly. Remember that story? They came running back to the club, and the old-timers were there. And it's as though John Gotti Sr. was in the club, and he gave the order to the people in the club to beat up his son and the other kids, the other guys. Remember that story? It's unbelievable. And they get beat up pretty bad by their own people. And John, the father, comes out and he says, how dare you betray me? What do you mean? We didn't do nothing. No. Yeah, you ran away. You betrayed me and the family. How dare you betray me? But what are we supposed to do? It's better you die for your family with courage. Better you die in your respect for your family. You run like a goddamn effing chicken? How dare you? You do that to me and your father and the family? Never again. Don't ever do that to me and the family. Tough words to use. On some level, he should hate his father for what the father did. The fact he never left the father. I know you, Adrian, you're right. He tried writing the books and all that. There is an attempt. I don't think he broke the field at all. He broke it a little bit. And the emotion, so when you're working with him, again, that's why I said in the opening tonight, when we look at a field, tell me the characteristics of the blender, okay? What's in it? What's in part of that field? One is what needs to be in the story. If you read holographically, what should be in that story, if I can talk like that, is there should be rage, hatred for what the father, you beat me up because I didn't make you proud? Who is the story about? I got to eat this piece of disgusting meat that's rotten because you made it, and I'm going to make you look bad if I throw it in the garbage, give it to the dog. I'm going to make you look bad if I don't get sick and I may get poisoned, but you don't give a goddamn about me. Are you kidding me? I should hate you. I should never talk to you again for what you've done to me and my family.
I have a question, Michael.
Yeah.
In regard to that, I think I remember that scene where he said the most important thing his father taught him was never step back.
Never what?
Never step back. Never step back.
Yeah.
Never step back. Well, isn't that about courage and not being a coward? And,
not in that context. In that sense, I'd rather have you die than step back.
There's nothing worse in a military family than a coward. And it's the same sort of concept. I guess that's why they call them soldiers.
But in the story, the father was saying that in what context?
Within the context of bravery, that
in what context?
Step back.
Bravery in what context?
That you don't step back. I mean, you're not a coward. So did he run because he was afraid of being injured?
What would you tell you? What would you tell your kid?
Because you're afraid of fighting a battle? Okay,
let's come home. Let's come home. If this was your kid, your son or daughter, okay? And they told you this story, say, Mom, we were getting the shit beat out of us. They were getting ready to get the guns in the car. They're getting ready to gun because they had us. They would have killed us that night or beat us. They would have broken our bones. And I don't mean I mean literally, they would have broken our bones. What would you say to your kid? Let's come real with this. What would you tell your child? If they said that we ran away, Mom, thank God they would have killed us. Johnny's already got broken fingers from these guys. We ran away, Mom. What would you say to him? What would you say to your son or daughter, Marie?
I'm a military family. I don't believe in this. I mean, it isn't just the mafia. You mentioned last week, like, they've kind of twisted the meaning of what that was about.
Come home right now. Real emotions. Donna, hold on. Donna, you got kids. All right? If these were your kids, Donna, and they said, yeah, we ran because they were getting the guns and knives and they already were beating us up really badly. We ran away. What would you say to your son or daughter? Hold on, you're muted. Hold on, let me fix your mute. Hold on. Okay, go ahead.
I'd say, good. I'm glad you ran away. You saved your lives.
But I was a coward, right?
No.
No. See, Marie, this is where context comes in. If I say to you, don't ever go against Conforti's way, I'm telling you how to do it. Don't you ever disagree with me, publicly or privately. Don't you ever do a different approach to this work, because this is about me and my reputation. You are there to make me proud. You're there to make me look good. That's what this is about. Every book that you cite, every reference, it better be about me and my work in the community. Oh my God, what a horrible human being I'd be if I ever sent that to anybody, if I even believed that. So yes, courage is wonderful.
In the world of the fathers and the hero, Isn't it always that challenge? Are you willing to die for it? Isn't it always about that?
Stick with context. If you're being told that you should risk your life for the Father, it's okay if you die as long as I can maintain my sense of pride. You don't matter. The kid doesn't matter in that context. The ego at that point, remember we talked about the son lovers, where the ego is there to fulfill the mother world of the mothers? Well, there's also the father lover. I mean, he normally doesn't talk about it. Maybe we can add that as an appendix, you know? If you are there, say, okay, Dad, I didn't want to make you look bad, so I ate that rotten meat. I was in the hospital the next 3 days. Dad, I didn't want to make you look bad, so I let him beat me up because, you know, they would have said, hey, us Gotti guys are weak. The Gotti family's weak. I did it for you, Dad. Isn't that great? That's patriarchal castration. There, of course, courage is important. And there are many ways of experiencing courage and showing all of that. This is not about courage. This is
well, in a sense it is, because Gotti was more than about being John Gotti. He supposedly was representing the symbol of the family, and the family was representing...
Well, hold on, Maria. I don't know why your phone's all breaking up. Your phone, it's hard to hear you. Try one more time. All right, let me mute myself here. Hold on. Let me mute everybody, see if that helps you.
John Gotti was a symbol of the family, and the family was a symbol of the leadership of the American Mafia, which was a symbol of a larger network of the syndicate.
Right.
So courage was important. He wasn't just running away and dishonoring his father, John Gotti. He was dishonoring the American Mafia and dishonoring the syndicate.
So what?
The world of the father.
Is that, remember I said, well, hold on. Remember I said, we're watching the ego engage with the world of the fathers.
Right.
The bigger question is, in what domain of the world of the fathers are you engaged? Is that a world you should idealize? You're kidding me. Why should he? Why should he?
Daughters every day. We ask our children to do it every day.
Yes, we
do.
There's a very big difference between the military and the mafia, though. It's a very big difference. Yes, kids give their lives for the country. It's huge.
Usually the mafia is pretty patriotic.
Well, I think any kid that would give their life to protect the father's reputation, it's a castration. The fact that there was no rage exhibited in him, the fact that he idealized the father, it's showing us what he idealized. Now, we may come out of different ends with this, but I feel very strongly about this one because I do know some of that world. It's a sordid, very destructive world. And if anybody said, like I played that out, you got to be a Conforti in the rest of your life, whatever. Oh, come on. Or if my Latin teaching, my Latin dance teacher told me I should never have my own step in that, I'd be like, what the hell is that? Say, learn your stuff. But it's what domain you're in. If you're teaching me to become a better and better criminal. So look, in terms of John Gotti Jr. and his kids, did he break the spell? You mentioned entrainment, Ilse. Yeah, I think in many ways John Gotti Jr. was entrained by that because he wanted to be the next in line, and he was for many years. Now, I mean, it's a very interesting juxtaposition of behaviors when he said, I was there for my kids. Even when I was in jail, I was at every meeting by phone. I was at, excuse me, what mattered to you, Mr. John Gotti Jr.? What became the altar that you worshiped at? Was it really caring for your kids, or was it really caring about the world of the mafia family? What mattered more? That your kids were deprived years with their father because of this stuff? And you never really emotionally left your father? In many ways, I'll come out, okay, and say what I think. I read this as a story of patriarchal castration and the son who never left, who never really made their way in the world of the fathers as an individual. He was a pawn. As big as his muscles were, and his muscles, gigantic muscles and all that, I don't see where he ever did what? What's one of the major assessments? The killing of the mothers and the killing of the fathers. What would have been the killing of the fathers? I'll answer my own question. Number one, it would have been, he said to himself, my father is despicable for who he is and what he does. That's really tough. I mean, how many people, and for years, for about 4 years, I was doing a lot of lecturing on the theme of forgiveness. And there's a book I'd like to recommend to all of you about this issue. It's called Sunflower, like the flower, girasole. Sunflower, The Limits of Forgiveness. Okay, and the author again is Simon Wiesenthal. I'll write it out here so you have it. It's an incredible piece of work. I'm not spelling it right, but no, you get it. By Simon. Wiesenthal was a famous Nazi hunter. He hunted down a lot of them all over the world. It's an incredible story. And he says, and I think it's accurate, archetypally, there's a limit of forgiveness. And most of us don't understand what forgiveness is about. When they say you got to forgive so you're not wrapped up in the issue. I hate that person, what they did, I hate them. What you're wanting to do is break the possession. That's what it's really about. It's not about forgiveness. So when people say, oh, I'm going to forgive my father that raped me, my mother that beat me and all that, oh, they're only human. Excuse me, really? It's not a question of saying, oh, it's okay, mommy, daddy, it's okay, whatever. It's not the issue. Have you broken the spell of what you're in? And many people, again, I'll use the word preemptively, try to leave that field by saying, oh, it's really okay, daddy. I know you didn't mean it when you did those terrible things. It's preemptive. No, this is not preaching hatred and resentment and all that stuff. It's part of the ontological portrait of humanity, that there are ontological, archetypal response, all too human responses, and there's nothing to be ashamed about. To say, he's out there, my father, this guy, he's killing people, murdering people, ripping families apart because of his need to be the Don, his need for money and control. Where did he ever kill the father off? And when he said at the end, people say you can't leave the family, but you can. You can't leave the family. I'll tell you right now, you can never leave once you're in it. Because you know too much. You know too much. They'll never let you go. So we're going to move to the more successful leavings in next week, in 2 weeks from now. And then we're going to finish it. We're going to do that. Then we're going to go to the world of the heroes, and then we're going to stop this module. But this piece is essential because we see these stories every day. I mean, this is a dramatic example, of course, but we see it every day. And you need to always be assessing, what world of the fathers, the outer world, is the ego involved in? A. And B, how are they doing it? Are they getting swept up in it? Is the ego being lost in that world? Is the ego able to navigate? Can the ego have a creative response? All these kind of things. But the major issue is, how are they working that stuff? How are they working it? And I think this story is a very powerful example of patriarchal castration. And the son, even when let's transpose Abraham and Isaac to John Gotti Jr. Even when the son realized there was no sheep to be slaughtered, he said, you use me, Dad. Take me. Catalina, you had a question.
No, I was going to talk about the closure situation when he went to see his father in prison for the last time.
Yeah. And
the father says to him, closure doesn't exist in my vocabulary.
We say that what?
It's the father says to him that the word closure doesn't exist in his vocabulary.
Yeah.
And he began to attack him, saying to him that closure, it was an overeducated and unintelligent notion.
Wow, I forgot that.
And the son was completely, I mean, I knew then that the ego wasn't strong enough because he couldn't claim for closure and liberation.
Yeah,
and his father denied it. So the true nature of the father revealed for me in that part when he said to his son, I will never let you go because closure doesn't exist in our world. And that's the world you will be trapped forever and ever and ever. For me, it was a very clear part of the spell. And I saw that Junior hadn't the strength to reveal himself against it. So that's why I think he's still trapped in the father's world.
Exactly. You see, after a while, you learn to look at behaviors of communications, relationships, as all being part and parcel of the story. Remember the terms coherent and dissonance. Behavior is always representative of the field from whence it originates. And from the behavior, like what Catalina's saying, when the father said no closure and whatever, and the son bought it, that's a really powerful story right there. That communication is telling you so much. The fact that the son never, from what we could tell, never said anything about how he did despise he really despised much of the father. He ended up continuing to idealize. So our question is, what's being idealized? What's being idealized? It's that criminal world of the fathers. It's, you know, one of the dominants of the criminality, and I learned this in a very interesting way. When you get stuff by being a criminal, when you steal and you rob or whatever, you know what the major issue is underneath that? You don't believe you could do it legitimately. I remember I was talking to Yoram years ago, telling him a story about how, you know, kind of joking around, but so much in out where I grew up, you always say things fell off the back of a truck. You know that expression, Elsa? Catalina, you know that and what it means in English? È caduto un carro. O macchina di scrivania è caduto nello carro. It fell off a truck. It means you stole it. The TV, I don't know, the TV fell off a truck. I found it on the road somewhere. It means you stole it. And I remember talking about it with Yoram, and he said, Michael, he said, I could tell you from the Jewish mafia. The Jewish mafia is also very strong, he said. And he said, the issue is many times the immigrants that do this, or people that are the cast-offs of society, and they don't believe they could do it legitimately, and they want what the other people have, but they're going to get it. They're going to get it one way or another through criminality. Now, the other thing with that is the beautiful home that John Gotti had, probably a $4 or $5 million house. What did he do? Where'd that money come from? So he's living in a home, a psychological home, subsidized by what? You see, I hope it's coming out the way I'm teaching with this, you know, at least as a modeling for how to deal with some of this stuff. So ultimately, I would say, yes, I think John Gotti represents, John Gotti Jr., the castrated son of the father. Yeah, Maggie? Hold on. You're muted. Okay.
Thanks. I had a comment about the home he was living in.
Yeah.
Because what he said was that I'm overly mortgaged. And I mean, the Greek term for mortgage means death grip, which means he is still in this oversized death grip of the world that he thought he should have been in.
Oh, wow, that's incredible. I didn't know that. So say it again, what it means, the Greek meaning of mortgage?
Mort, meaning death, gauge, grip.
Grip, wow. Wow, the death grip, huh? So when okay, so now make the translation. Be clear now. Brilliant what you're saying. So what would the translation be from that? When he says, man, I'm really heavily mortgaged with this house. So what's he saying archetypally and symbolically?
That he is still under the grip of the
death grip.
Yeah. That it's killing him and he is suffocating.
Beautiful. That is brilliant reading. That's fantastic. Yeah, so it would be a very tough comment to what you got to say to this guy. Say, look, you still idealize that which is criminal and destructive, and you never cut the ties. Because remember, in every father relationship, even the best of fathers. Remember the story I told you with Jung and C.A. Meyer, when he said, "Oh my God, you died in my dream," and Jung said, "Good, finally, go away, make a life for yourself." There needs to be a cutting of the cord somewhere. And people often do it kind of misguidedly. They say, "Oh, now I hate you. I learned this, now I hate you, I'm going to go away. I'm going to do it my way." Well, that's kind of immature. But there needs to be a breaking of the spell somewhere. Say, you know what? I want to have my way with this stuff. I want to cook it my way and all that. It's essential. There's got to be a killing of the father somewhere. The killing of that world of the collective when you begin to go your own way. And in this story, I don't think he ever did, because he never killed that which was oppressive, that which he was embedded in, that he was, and he probably had more ability than that. He seemed like a very clever guy and all, but he was unable to really reconcile with the criminality of all this, and that someone who he admired so deeply made their living by killing and extortion. And when here's the other piece about the hologram, okay? Like the dominant we talked about in the beginning. If you idealize someone who's so criminal and makes their money by murder and extortion, what's your totem? Remember what the totem means. The totem is your approach to the self. What is his approach to the self then? You can answer that pretty easily. That's a sad story. It's a very sad story. So courage, Marie, yeah, I mean, we all want courage. We all want our kids to have courage, our students to have courage. It needs to be done thoughtfully. It needs to be understood within a context. Look, to say, in the wartime, I mean, I know you work with a lot of soldiers, and you've been involved in that world for a long time, to say, I mean, horrible. I remember I read about a story just a couple of weeks ago about a soldier that was with about 10 guys. They're all together, like 10 guys and women, whatever, in the war. It's like recreation time, and someone threw a hand grenade. He jumped on it to save everybody. His legs and arms are blown off. And he said, "I would do it again tomorrow for my people. They're my brothers and sisters." We could say many things, but I think it probably was an incredibly courageous act that he did. When courage is done for the betterment of something, not to help subsidize something that is so hurtful and criminal, like the world of mafia in this example. So here again, what we see here, again, blatantly missing in the story, is the ability to kill off the fathers, which needed to happen. He didn't kill the fathers, and that was his undoing. Okay, any comments before we stop for tonight? Yeah, Ilse.
Michael, just a question which may be weird, but you first said that it's important that the ego wants to learn the world of the father. This kid was lived or was born in this world. So in a way, his first step was to know it, then understand it, and then individuate from it when he learned that is not correct, right? That's like the way, right?
Yes.
First, he needed to learn about that, and because it was his work, and he speaks a lot about that. I remember him saying, it's like nobody would understand. It's just family. It's culture. Is something, it only happens here. It's our own law, is what he said. So he learned about that, but his way out would have been to then from that individuate and make a decision there.
Yes.
In the killing of the father afterwards.
So he would have been in the world. He saw what the world was, and he said, "This is no world I want to be part of." Yeah.
Thank you.
And again, one needs to evaluate very carefully what collective structures you become part of. And as a pattern analyst, again, whether you're doing, I'll say it a million times, you know, whether you're coaching or doing analytic work, you need to have the courage to say something. And I'm going to tell you, one of the greatest faults of modern day therapy is we're basically cowards. We're cowards. You have a moral imperative to make the unconscious perception of morality, to make it conscious. You're mandated to do that. That's not, well, what I think and feel, or I think it's okay. You're going to get it from the unconscious. And the more you learn about these archetypal structures, and that's the term Neumann uses, and I like that very much. Once you know that, you can make that evaluation. And you're going to be able to read more and more clearly situations. Like they heavily mortgaged, great, fantastic catch, man, on that. And all these other things. Catalina, when you said about the closure, the son couldn't break it. He never really broke the spell. And you see how he was lying to him unconsciously, deceiving himself and lying to himself, said, but look, I never left my kids. Excuse me, are we like missing a little story here? You're with your kids, you're at every meeting with them, but you're in jail. Why are you in jail? Because you're possessed by the world of the father. You never left your fathers, and now the next generation is going to pay the price for it. I'm sorry, Charlie. That's your story. And it's not about judgment. It's about evaluation based on archetypal dynamics. If you're a physician or whatever your specialty is, and you're making an assessment based on reading the cell pattern in the patients, whatever, reading the blood levels, whatever, or whatever your skill is, that's not your opinion. You're reading information. Yeah. Catalina?
The other thing that I was thinking of was the codes. He spoke a lot about the codes of the mafia, the codes of the street. And I was asking myself that maybe he doesn't know any other code, and maybe that's the same codes that he's teaching to his children, even if he's thinking he's doing the right thing and he's with them and he's a loving father. Maybe the same codes are being transmitted to their kids because he doesn't know any other codes.
Exactly. And
so that's a perpetuation, even if it's a different context, the codes I don't know how to say, se transmiten generacionalmente, even if he doesn't know. It's
transmitted to the children.
Yeah.
It's transmitted to the family, to the kids, yeah.
Exactly.
And that's where the strong
even
intervention.
If they,
okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Exactly. So even if they are not mafia anymore, the codes are the same. So in a certain way, they are still living in the mafia way. The codes are the same.
Exactly.
Are not being transformed.
Exactly.
Transformed.
Yeah. Tough work. And what I think is tough is, and I will leave with this one piece, be aware of the difference between having an opinion and reading information. There are objectives. And I know that's a very tough word in our profession today. There are objective things. Okay. Read that piece on, watch the thing on Bergman, Ingmar Bergman. It's a 6-part series, watch it. And also I'd like you to think about and find other examples or examples where there was a healthy relationship between a son or daughter with the world of the fathers. Okay, how about this for a brief assignment? Who's going to present next time a 15-minute presentation on a successful relationship to the world of the fathers? Say a woman, do it through a woman's life. Who wants to volunteer? Maybe 2 people with 2 different stories.
So what are you looking for again? Say that again, Michael.
What I'm looking for is 2 people to present 2 15-minute segments on a story where the daughter had a very healthy and generative relationship to the father world. And she navigated it really well. And maybe there was the killing off in one way. But again, remember, reread the thing on killing of the fathers in the Neumann. It's not violence and hatred. It's not about that. It would have been for John Gotti Jr. here. So who's going to do it next time? Who's volunteering? Don't all jump up here.
Well, I'll volunteer.
Okay, good. There's one. One more.
I'll do it.
Okay, yeah. You're funny. Okay. You can take it any way you want to do it. Real life, outer world, fairy tales, novels, cinema. You tell me. It's up to you. Okay. See you later.
Thanks,
Okay.
Michael.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.